Okay. So, it is a great honor and a greater pleasure for me to interview Mr. Barry Magee, a truly great and inspiring running and coaching legend. Barry is known as one of the Lydiard boys who took the world by surprise in the 1960 Olympic Games in Rome and consequently changed and redefined the paradigm of training for long and middle distance success. Barry finished third in that unforgettable Olympic marathon, running the last 15 kilometers in the dark. As that's the story anyway, in Rome, winning a bronze medal when Abebe Bikele ran the fastest marathon ever up to that date. Barry ran 2 hours, 17 minutes and 18 seconds, if I'm correct, winning the bronze medal, and it was one of the fastest marathons ever at that time.
World record.
In this interview, we'll also speak about your consequent success as the world's leading runner in the marathon and the 10,000 meters, breaking the 4 times mile world record, the New Zealand team, and also your unbelievable success as a masters runner, and also the fact that you've been coaching runners to pretty impressive achievements ever since, prominently using Arthur Lydiard's system. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. And first of all, I wanted to say that before we begin, that the coaching of Lydiard and the amazing character of him and you, the main running group, the Lydiard boys, has served as a wonderful influence and inspiration to many runners in Israel. I think it was around the 70s that a lot of champion coaches and runners picked up on the books and started reading and implementing it. And also for our club, so the concepts of high mileage, periodization, and the belief in that patient aerobic development over time pretty much define how we train at the Jerusalem Breakfast Club. Of course, it's an amateur club, but we're trying to follow those footsteps. And I'll try and use the interview to talk about those 2 parts, so both your career as a runner and then as a coach as well, which would be interesting to hear. And we will take this interview and relay it to all of our readers in Israel and hopefully also get them excited toward your visit to Jerusalem and hopefully meet you there as well. So the first question, I think, if you think you can try and describe going back to that day in September 1960 in Rome. So you were running in the dark, torches lighting the way. Were you knowing that you were running towards that main achievement? I mean, did you had any idea how fast you were going? Did you grasp the meaning of that run, both personally and on a national level? How does it feel like for a runner to be in that moment inside that achievement?
Well, I think the answer would be no, 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 and no to all of those questions. That's right. There was about 70 runners in the race, and they actually changed the starting time of the race. What they were scared of, it was 30 degrees every day in Rome, and we'd been there for 4 weeks, and it was very hot. And the week before the Olympic marathon, a Swedish cyclist had died in the road race, in the 150 mile or whatever road race that they do. Probably a combination of heat and drugs. That would be my guess today. He'd probably taken stuff, and the heat affected him, and he died in the race. So there was a great protest from all the athletic managers of the whole world who had marathon runners running that similar might happen in the marathon. So it was changed where it was supposed to be the greatest probably pictorial from helicopters and photographs and cameras work done to really put Rome in the front of the world, as they do with international marathons. And that they changed the time for the runners, and they sort of from about 1 o'clock in the afternoon start, which would have been great for the world TV and the world everything, to about 4 o'clock or 4:30, something later in the day, when we would be running the last 15k in the dark. And but that's the way it was, because if you have a look at the internet and Google, you'll see us running down the Appian Way in the pitch dark, and where there's no street lights, but there were soldiers holding flaming torches about every 100 metres on the alternate sides of the road. So that's another reason it went down as one of the greatest marathons in history, because they'd never run a marathon in the dark before. They'd never run an Olympic marathon that wasn't at the stadium, and it started outside the stadium, and everything was done in a completely different way. and I had no idea where I was even at the finishing line. No idea. So had no idea that I'd run fast. Had no idea that I'd got a medal, and so it was a wonderful surprise to get the finishing line, and then find out that I actually had got third and I got the bronze medal in the Olympic Games, which, you know, for any runner in the world is it's just one of the greatest things that he can do in the sport that he has chosen. But that overnight success of Rome, that took me 11 years to do in training. So, as they say with most things that are successful in life, you know, hard work comes before success.
Mm-hmm.
So 11 years of training had gone into that one day then that changed the history for Barry, and partly for New Zealand in distance running, because we'd never won an Olympic medal like that before in a marathon, and that was the first ever New Zealander to get an Olympic marathon medal. And as we know, there were 2 gold medals for New Zealand in 5,000 and 800 at that time, which were a few days before my race. And but it was very, very exciting. But I certainly had no idea what I was doing, that I was creating history in a way of being a world record, the first marathon in history with an African to win it, and to win it in bare feet. And so that was a historical first ever, and because they didn't believe the times that Ethiopia had submitted that this man actually had done in the trials and that. They thought, oh, they've got it all wrong, because he'd run, you know, way faster than the Olympic record, you know, to qualify for Rome. And the amazing thing was that he was standing, you know, within 1 metre of me at the starting line too, in his bare feet.
What did you think when you saw him bare feet?
Well, I thought, well, he must have come out of the jungle. You know, yeah, the poor man can't afford shoes.
And then he went off.
But of course, they feel more comfortable. We know many Africans feel more comfortable running in bare feet than they would in really, you know, professional running shoes that we had been accustomed to.
Yeah.
I mean, people like me, I couldn't have run it in bare feet. And for him, he found it difficult to run in shoes because they'd lived in bare feet. Yeah. So, but it was it was a wonderful surprise, and that games, as you said, turned the history of the Lydiard training being recognised as the best and the most successful ever devised in the world for middle and distance runners, and just about the whole world followed the Lydiard way in the years that followed. And the Japanese and those countries, they were here very quickly, wanting to learn everything possibly. And but we know it is the most successful system, and probably half the world today still uses Lydiard's principles for the success that they have, even if they don't know it or they don't acknowledge it. They still use half the world would do that today.
Yeah, so one of the famous quotes by Lydiard is that he said, "I'm one of those people who realize that there are great champions everywhere, every village, every town, every country, and all you have to do is train them." Yes. And in Rome, that unique group, the Lydiard boys, which is, we've talked this before we started recording, but New Zealand, 2 million people, just a group of people from Auckland, 45 people, Peter Snell, Murray Halborg, yourself, coming from the same small running group in Auckland, exemplifying that concept. And again, in 64, Snell won another gold.
2 golds.
Yeah, 2 golds, sorry, 800 and 1500. And I think John Davis added the bronze in those games as well. What do you think were the keys to the success of that small group's amazing achievements?
Well, it all boils down to one man and one thing, Lydiard. Lydiard, for some reason, they still don't know how he knew everything. But what we do know, and from living with him and running with him and having him as my coach, for all those years, we did know he studied every known way of training in the world, and took the best out of that, the best of the South Africans, the best out of the British runners, who had set world records and things, and then he experimented on himself for up to about 5 years. before he started formulating what is now the training schedules of Lydiard that are still available to the whole world to follow. And through that 5 years, he discovered that, you could run faster and better when you were stronger, and it became effortless. It was a combination of cardiorespiratory, cardiovascular efficiency, and that allowed runners to just run endlessly and tirelessly. But the natural ability for some that determines whether you're a 100-metre runner. The Usain Bolts are born sprinters of this world. Other people are born 100k runners, really, because they're slow, but they could just run all day. But the Lydiard method brings out the best in everybody, and but you determine your race distance by the fact of your natural speed, which we determine over a 200-metre sprint. 200-metre sprint determines how fast you are and whether you can be a middle distance or a distance or an ultra distance racer and runner. So, but Lydiard knew it all, and they still today do not know how he knew it all. And 99% of it, it seems, has proven right. And the results just prove it for themselves, and it's still happening today. That even the results of the people I coach. Last winter in our New Zealand Cross Country Championship, I had 3 runners running in the M20 or under 20 division of the National Cross Country Championship, which is about 8k, and first, second, and fourth. 3 in the first 4 in the New Zealand Championship, all training the Lydiard way, and so it doesn't matter what it is or where it is. In the 1980s, I took the Lydiard method of training to Korea, South Korea. Now, Lydiard was supposed to go, and he wouldn't go or couldn't go. He asked me to go. I spent a month in Korea coaching the coaches and telling the coaches and leaving them Lydiard's book. And in the 90s, they won a gold and a silver medal at the Olympic marathons. And the funny thing is they gave me the credit for the 2 Olympic medals of Korea and flew me back to say thank you in the 90s. Thank you for that. But that's the success of Lydiard. So if anyone wants to be a champion, they don't have to recreate or invent the wheel again. Lydiard's done it all for us. It's all there, and all we've got to do is follow the instructions of the master coach. And remember, he died in about 2003, 87 years of age, doing a lecture tour in America at the time. He died of a heart attack, bang, gone. And they flew him back to New Zealand, the body, and I conducted his funeral service. So I was very connected to Arthur Lydiard.
Okay. And when people say that group took the world by surprise, did you surprise yourselves? Because today, you can go online, you can see the times for every runner that you're going to race against, but I'm guessing back then in the days, did you even know who are you going to run against? What were their best times? How did you know how good you were? Am I good enough to win a medal? How fast I am? So did you surprise yourselves? That group, did you surprise yourselves in those games?
I don't think so. No, I don't think it was any surprise to us whatsoever. Because, Hallberg in the previous 2 years had beaten the world champion, had beaten the world record holder, and was a success. Snell was a surprise because he was only 21. He'd only been training for 3 years under Lydiard, but Lydiard always said that it takes 3 years to make a champion. 3 years of real training, what he called 3 summers and 3 winters of real training. That means training 50 weeks of the year and doing everything you need to do. And but Snell was a surprise because he wouldn't have been ranked in the top 20 in the world in the lists. But Snell and Lydiard told everyone for 3 weeks in Rome that Snell would win. Lydiard knew somehow, and I think Snell actually believed that too. he didn't go to Rome to qualify for a final. He went to win at Rome, even though he's a complete unknown. And of course, as we know, the history books tell us that the world record holder, Roger Mowens of Belgium, he just wondered who this upstart was. But I mean, the confidence that Snell had was beyond anything that I've ever experienced in my life. On the way to the semi-finals, where he's going to race against Mowens in the semi-finals of the Olympic 800 metres, Snell said to Lydiard, "I hope Mowens runs fast enough today that I may break the Olympic record today." Is that confidence?
Sounds like it.
I've never made a statement like that in my lifetime. I always hoped I would do well. I never told anyone that I just hoped that I would do well, and I'd go out to do the best I could always. And if I won, I won. If I lost, I lost. So be it. The sun will still rise tomorrow, and you just get on with life. But Snell was, absolute champion in weighting, and Lydiard recognised that, and he had the ability, the speed, and the stamina and the strength. But you got to remember, 1964, the great Peter Snell did 10 weeks of 160k a week in his conditioning to be the best prepared and the best conditioned middle distance runner in the world. There wouldn't have been another middle distance runner in the world who would do that in preparation for any major event today. I don't think they would do it. And I've talked to middle distance runners champions in New Zealand, and nobody, even today in 2017, does that in middle distance running. Some of the distance runners don't even do that. But that was the Lydiard way. There was plan A and no plan B. Yeah, so it was. But but Hallberg, he was a confident, but we were the best prepared and the best conditioned runners in the world. That's what made the difference. We had the physical and the mental strength to fight the good fight, and most other runners in the world didn't have the strength, stamina factor that all the dead runners had. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's Simon Aspen or Peter Snell. They've still got to have that. Or have that. You've got to have that wonderful basic conditioning that's done 100% aerobic for perhaps 8 to 10 weeks, and you go from, even in 10 weeks, runners can go from zero to hero. That's how fast the things can change with just doing the training and doing the work. But so there's that big mental challenge of, am I prepared to do it? But nobody, you either shaped up or shaped out of Lydiard. If you did the work, you were in. If you didn't, he wouldn't even be bothered with you. You had to be prepared to do what he said, and that was it.
Okay. Can you describe how it was like to train with that group? I mean, not the specific training system or the methods. We're going to talk about that later, but just like the dynamics. I mean, how was it like? The friendship, the attitude, competing each other in training, like what was the mindset of that group? Like, we're gonna train to be the best in the world, or how did it feel like just the everyday training?
I can't remember it being any special thinking of that, apart from the fact you had some friends to run with, probably just the same as you do, whether you're in Jerusalem or in New Zealand. You're not. There's no thought of that I'm training to be the best in the world. Nothing like that. In fact, we probably talked about every subject in the world. If we'd been running, if it was in today, we'd be talking about what's Trump doing to America, and is Bill English doing a good job? That was it, or one saying that you painted the bathroom last weekend or something because the wife said, you do that. We'd be talking. It was just a general bunch of guys enjoying the fellowship and the training together not terribly even thinking much about running. No, it was a sociable as well as a training group, and that's, there was the fun always in there. There was never a time that it was really hard work, or there was always the fun. And some of us, like, I think I had the ability to either train alone or with others. It didn't worry me. If I had 2 hours training run on the schedule, I'd just go out and do a 2 hour training run. Some runners, it seems, can't do that. I'd just go out and do it anyway. But it was fun once a week or twice a week or whatever to run with the others. And we didn't train together all the time, let's put it that way, because we were all working. At the time, we were all 17 or 18, 19 when we met Lydia, and there was no one at university or anything like that. We were all going to work, and so we were training at different times from Monday to Friday, and so it was just part of life, really. And I don't think any of us we weren't in that category where we were paranoid about having to do all the training or having to do this, or that it was champion or nothing. There was no thought of that. We were just enjoying life, enjoying sport, enjoying running, because I call running freedom, mental and physical freedom. It's very hard. You can't run and worry. It's an impossibility. In fact, it works like a drug. It makes you feel good. You come home and runners sing in the shower. So we were just very ordinary, normal, really human beings, and we didn't see ourselves like as world beaters or world champions, anything like that. We're just a bunch of normal guys going out there training and running, and we were all great mates. Really, we were great mates, and we didn't consider. I don't think I hated any of them, even on the race day. Even though, we had 6 Olympians. We ended up, at about 64, 6 Olympians in Auckland, and I could go out to any race, even though I was a world-ranked athlete, and get 6th in the local derby. So I'd go home, and my wife would say, "How'd you get on?" I said, "Well, I got 5th today," which meant I didn't get a medal. Or didn't get anything, and but it didn't matter. It didn't matter, and I think we didn't. I know I particularly didn't live to run. Running was just part of life, and I call it, as I tell all my runners, it's a bonus in life. Don't live to run. Don't become neurotic and fanatic about it. You enjoy it and have fun while you can. So I raced all the way through till I was 69 years of age because I was still enjoying it.
Okay. And I understood you also excelled as a rugby player in your teens, and also only later turned into distance running. Yeah, I heard the story. You had a previous interview, I read a story of the transformation, that you weren't that good and then you met someone during a game and that changed everything. But
yes,
following that, first of all, when did you realize that distance running was the thing that you want to do? And do you think there's anything from rugby that is carried out to your career as a runner for you and also for others? Because New Zealand is predominantly a rugby nation. So
rugby football.
Yeah. So do you see any connection between the two, like different qualities that serve you in both professions, or are they completely separate in your view?
They are pretty separated, really. But your mental attitude, the mental thinking, you need the same quality for both, which is great determination. Now, I played rugby football as a kid for 3 years in a row, and for 2.5 years was a total failure. Total failure. And it has people laughing their heads off, and I explained to them I would do anything rather than tackle the guy on the other team, which rugby is a real contact sport, and then I hated it. If he tackled me, I thought I was going to get hurt, and I was scared. I was a scared little boy, and that's the worst thing you can have in rugby. But as the story goes, at 14 I went to a Bible class camp, and the minister challenged us there in our talk to give our lives to God and let Him take over our lives. And at that camp, I said, yes, I will do that. Within about a month later, this man came up to me at a rugby match and took me aside and gave me a talk. And that day changed my life. And I think God sent him into my life. And and for the next 3 months, I was one of the best footballers in Auckland City as a left wing three-quarter. Quite fast, but not a sprint fast, but fast enough. Skinny little boy who was determined to the uttermost. All fear had gone. And that transformation of all fear being gone, but the funny thing is, of course, 6 months later, I injured my finger playing football, and I couldn't have it in a splint for 6 weeks. And a Bible class friend of mine invited me along to a Harrier club to go for a 3-mile run. It's about 5k, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because it didn't matter about the finger of mine that was in a splint. And we had about a 1k run in at the finish of the race, and I think I might have got first or second in this run in these bunch of just junior kids aged 15 years of age. And Barry the runner was born that day. I never played another game of football, even though as the rugby the previous season I ended up representing Auckland, which is not easy in Auckland to get into a rugby rep team. They chose about 22 players, and I only got half a game in the rep game. But I scored my first try in a representative match, and I carried about 3 players over on my back scoring the try. Such was the determination, but that same determination then carried on to the running. So I believe God used the football as a training thing to get the running, but now Barry the runner was born at 15 years of age, and the rest is history.
Okay. And then, amazingly, from my perspective, Barry the runner continuing to run marathons for decades. I mean, even after winning that Olympic medal, you ran
five decades.
Yeah, so you ran sub 2:30 at 48 and 49 years old.
Yes.
And 2:44 at 54.
Yes.
Which sounds just unbelievable. So how did you do that? Because the roads...
2:54 at 64.
Really?
Yes.
How do you do? Because I mean, if you see runners today, so many of them are banged up or injured, or so. What's I know there's no secret, but what do you attribute it to? How come you were? You said previously because you enjoyed it, but do you think is it just that, or is?
Not sure if there's any real answer for that. I don't know. Our style and our cadence. I mean, Lydia'd called Barry the ballet dancer of the road. So somehow I was a floater, and probably I probably had my share of injuries, but as every runner does. But somehow came through all of them, and it never changed my attitude. But it probably perhaps I was born to run. Born to run. Perhaps it was that way. That and so if I got injured, I'd get over the injury and just start again, and start again, and start again. Never lost the love of running. But then I did an exercise on the kitchen floor when I was 42. I had to have my knee cartilage out in one part of the knee. That was about a 3-inch, about 7 centimetre big cut. And they took out the whole cartilage, and it had a split in it. I'd split it doing an exercise on the kitchen floor when I was about 42. And the surgeon said, "You'll probably never run again, Barry, on roads and marathons and things like that." And I just thought to myself, well, I'll show you. And I think about 9 months later, I ran a 2:29 marathon. And I just started again without the cartilage. And what I found, I would wear shoes out on that leg in a different way.
Really?
Yeah, because it changed the cadence of my style and step. But no, I don't know. I just just got out there and still enjoyed it all the way. And it's been a wonderful ride. But such was the experience too. Then of actually helping others to do it all well and to do it all good as well, the Lydiard way.
Okay. And also, you mentioned earlier that you and the other Lydiard boys also that you worked. So you ran well over 100 miles a week and also working full time. So you were an amateur basically. You weren't a professional runner. You didn't get paid to do.
I never
running.
got a dollar. I never got a dollar in any of my 54 years of running. No, I shouldn't say that. I think in 54 years, I think I had about $700 given to me. $700 in 54 years.
Mm.
So we were true amateurs.
Yeah.
I had to get a bank loan every time I went away. I did 2 Commonwealth Games and 2 Olympic Games for New Zealand, plus things like a world tour, like a European tour, 6 weeks away. I'd have to get a bank loan every time. It would take me 6 to 12 months to pay off a bank loan every time when I came home. That's how amateur we were.
Mm.
But we did it because we loved to run. We did it, or Barry did anyway. I think some runners, they ran because they wanted success. They wanted to be number 1 in the world. I'd put Hallberg and Snell perhaps in that category. Barry just ran because he enjoyed it. So, but there was never money. There was never money there. I mean, goodness me, at the Rome Olympics with our New Zealand 3 medals, we'd have been lucky if we could raise probably about $500 between the 3 of us. We'd put everything we were worth. We had nothing. We all had nothing virtually at Rome in 1960 because we were so amateurish. You weren't allowed to receive, $5 as a prize at an athletic meeting, or you'd be termed a professional and banned from all amateur running.
Yeah. So how do you balance that much training with work, family life? All of that.
With great difficulty. Yeah, that's perhaps the hardest thing of all is to get that balance. Particularly, you might be running 6 o'clock in the morning till 6:30. 8:30 is starting work, and it worked like in my situation. I worked till 5:30. I'd get home at 6 o'clock, and I'd get changed and go out training at 6 o'clock and train for 1 to 2 hours each night and you'd be having tea at 8:30 every night. So it was a whole change of lifestyle but the thing is, because you wanted to do it, you did it. And some of the others runners, lots of them did knock off perhaps at 4:30 or 5, so they were, but for Barry it was 5:30 knock off at a 6 o'clock start running time. But I just did it. And I didn't even think about times and things like that. Did it matter or did it not? Or it's 6:30 or something, and it never crossed my mind not to do it, regardless of the time. But as you say, with family and work, it was a big juggle. It was certainly a juggle, and probably at times it was quite difficult. Particularly in the middle of winter, when it was dark at 6 o'clock, and I would go out and run 18 miles or 30k in the rain for 2 hours in the middle of winter and still do it. I don't know if that makes a difference of a champion or not, but such is your focus and such is your commitment to do the stuff. And I always had I think I had quite a lot of fear with me. Someone said I won a New Zealand 6-mile championship one year, and the man who was second, he came up to me afterwards and he said, "Do you know you never looked behind once the whole race?" I said, "No, I was too scared to." He thought it was confidence. The real answer was fear. But it doesn't matter, I don't think, what drives us. It was it. So, but we just did it and juggled. Luckily, I had a wife at the time that supported my running and wanted me and worked in with me. That would be an impossibility. If your wife didn't like your running, you'd be stupid to continue it. You need to change direction. But luckily, I mean, we all had wives that wanted us to run and helped us in that. And so that mean that you had a wonderful cook perhaps, and you had a wonderful housekeeper, and you had a wife that was helping you all the way to accomplish what you wanted. And I don't think some of us would have done it if we hadn't had that cooperation. So up to a certain age, we had a mother that did it for us, and then we exchanged that for a wife, and that wife, if she cooperated, helped us to be the champions we became.
Okay.
But it was difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult at times.
Just start touching on some training methods. Just a small cut. Did you have any favorite training session personally? Like into something that you enjoyed most in other training sessions?
No, not really. Not for Barry. I mean, some of them were tough. Now, when you've got a night doing hill running, for instance, the only word that you can describe it is it's a tough session. It's a tough session. No, I don't think I had really any favourite ones. What we do now is Lydian training is called periodization training, and it's split up into 4 periods or 4 phases. And the first one is conditioning, so you might do 8 weeks at least of that, then 4 weeks of hill work, and then perhaps 8 weeks of track work and repetitions and time trials, and then about 4 weeks of sharpening or short sprints and races and freshening up. So they had that variation right through a 6-month period. We worked in 2 periods of 6 months each year, and we had 2 weeks a year off. So 50 weeks training and 2 weeks holiday of training, and but all of us couldn't wait to start again after the 2 weeks. In fact, sometimes in that second week we'd do 2 or 3 little 30-minute jogs because we couldn't wait to start training again. Such was the keenness. But Lydia had always said the brain needs a rest, not the body. He said the body never needs a break or a rest. All you have to do is jog to restore the body, but the brain needs a rest. So that's why I insisted on 2 weeks of no specific training, or and if possible, physical and mental rest for him. But half the boys I know that Lydian trained, they jogged during that 2 weeks because they couldn't give it away completely. But the emphasis was on the mental rest as far as Lydian was concerned, and it must have worked because we never got burnt out. We never got to the stressed out and stuff about it. That 2 weeks mental rest every year just restored you for 50 weeks of get up and go.
You mentioned that last part of the periodization was about the tapering or peaking for a race, which is a big thing in Lydiard's method of training. As a runner, how did you know that you were ready for a race? Did you have some kind of a physical feeling? What is a mental mindset that you just said, okay, I'm ready for this now? Or how did it feel like from your perspective?
Well, I think it came automatically with the training. So you'd be racing and training. And at the beginning of that 6 months, you go out and run. Do you talk kilometres or you talk miles?
I live here, so both.
Yeah, you understand both. Yeah. Well, whatever's needed. I've had half my life in miles and half in kilometres. So to me, they're both the same. I know 3 miles is 5k, and 6 miles is 10k, and 26 miles is 42k, sort of thing. But we'd go in that first few weeks of training. A 10-mile run might take me 63 or 64 minutes to go out and run a 10 miles or a 16k. And that, as the months went by, I'd go out and do that same course in 55 or 56 minutes, easily. Not as hard as it was to start with. So, and then you got onto your repetitions or your time trials. And the time trial for Barry, I'd go out and do 6 miles in 35 minutes, in week 1. But by about week 6 of that training, that would be down to 31 minutes for the 6 miles in training, or 30 minutes for the 6 miles in training. So the confidence, and then you'd start in a race on a Saturday or something like that. There'd be an interclub race on. You go and race, and we'd be racing at club night on a Wednesday night, week after week after week, 2 races a week for 6 weeks, perhaps before the major races, and that all told you exactly how you were at the time, and so there was no guesswork to it. See, we had a successful formula to follow every year, and it just worked. And we've got to remember that in 10 years of New Zealand Championships, as an example, where there is an 800, 1500, 5000, 10,000 marathon, Lydiard runners won 45 of the 50 New Zealand Championships in a 10-year period. Could anyone argue against the formula not being right? Or we trusted the formula, we had it all there, and we just proved it year after year after year after year. In fact, most of us would run different distances at the New Zealand Championships, so we could each go home with a gold medal or silver. I don't know how that sounds, but we would sit around the table in about November and work out what we'd do. Snell for the 880, Halberg for the mile, and Bailey for the 3 mile, and Barry for the 6 mile, and Puckett and Julian could fight out the marathon. 45 out of 50. So it was such a successful formula that we'd go to the New Zealand Championships, and you'd see the other runners from around New Zealand would see Arthur's boys walking around on the Friday night before the champs, and they would turn pale. They were filled with fear. I suppose like David and Goliath, when all the Israelites saw Goliath, they turned and fled, or they were just filled with fear. So the rest of New Zealand was like that with Arthur's boys. We were just, it was so dominant that it was amazing. And everyone, you didn't have to live in Auckland. The South Island runners followed it. Whoever followed the formula succeeded. But it was, but you just knew you're going out there to try to win the race. Didn't win them all. I probably lost more races in my career than I've ever won. But I think during about a 10-year period, I started in about 17 New Zealand Championships, and it was 7 golds, 7 silver, and 3 bronze. 17 medals, 17 places, 17 starts. That was Lydiard. I think, see, so, but I didn't win. You've got to remember, I lost 10 of it. I didn't win 10 of the 17, but you just took it. And I mean, I got my goals because the other Olympians didn't run in that particular race at the New Zealand Championship, because you couldn't run everything. So it worked out good, but we were all lifted up that way. And but it was the training just put you into a mental position and a physical position where you went out to try and win the race every time.
Okay. And then how was the transition from running to coaching for you? Was it natural? Did you just felt like it was a continue your career just in a different position, or did you have any challenges that you have to overcome moving from Barry the runner to Barry the coach?
Well, no, I never had any problems whatsoever in the transition. In fact, after about 5 years of coaching, one of my runners ran the 4th fastest 10,000 in history. So that was more proof. And that luckily, I always had sort of like a big tick from Lydiard that he told other people, Barry Magee probably understands my training better than virtually any other coach in the world. And not everyone understood the Lydiard philosophy or the Lydiard way, particularly track runners. But I asked Arthur, 20 years later, I said, why me? Why have you chosen that I understand it better? And he said, Barry, marathon runners understand my training better than others. And you are the marathon man, and the trackman, see? And because my combination is just about unrivaled. In 1 year I should be number 2 in the world over 5,000, number 1 in the world over 10,000, and first equal in the marathon in 1961. That was an incredible combination, and as well as the 4x1 mile world relay record holder over so many distances. But he said, marathon men understand my training, and you are a marathon man. So, I get inquiries from all over the world of someone who wants to improve their marathoning. They seem to understand that, and they come to Barry to help them in their coaching and training, and that works. Of one man in India, his goal is to break 5 hours for a marathon. A 45-year-old businessman, and he weighs in about 96k. So I have challenges that way, but then there are other people, who are 2:35 marathon runners who end up running 2:16 marathons and things like that. So it is there, but I never had any trouble, because I think by the time I was 30 and sort of retiring from international running, I'd been 13 years with Lydiard. I virtually knew his stuff, and I could tell you, half his lines or most of the things he said, just as now I get people here quoting Barry from 30 years ago or 40 years ago in his coaching. Barry says this and Barry says that. Well, I'm the same with Lydiard. Lydiard says this and Lydiard says that, and I can still remember all his main quotes and main lines to us. But I do it a little bit more gently, I think. I sort of love my runners. He loved us in a sort of a gruff way, a harsh way, in a strict way. He made us like family, really. And I do it in sort of a gentle way. And if you ask some of the girls I coach, as one of them said a few years ago, she brought a new girl along to training one night, and she introduced this new girl to Barry and said, "Yeah, Christine, you do everything Barry tells you. He will help you. He'll help you with your running." He was a secondary school runner. He will help you running. He said, "Barry loves us all." Barry loves us all. And I think that's come through. The friendship sort of, and helping, I don't sort of slap them down. I try to build them up, encourage them. And even if they get last, I pat them on the back and say, "You did your best. You gave it all you had. I think you're a champion," even though they got last. And they go home happy, sort of thing. If they are stupid or they do a stupid race, I will tell them. But if they have given their best shot, the ability doesn't matter, the placing doesn't matter. Every finisher is still a winner, aren't they? To me, even if they are last in the race. And so I've enjoyed and I have tremendous satisfaction out of coaching runners to Olympic Games and the Commonwealth Games and World Championships, World Cross Countries, and one of my runners won gold at the last Masters World Championship in Perth, a gold medal, a lady, 60-year-old lady, etc. Others got 4th and 5th in the Masters World Champs, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of the coaching. But I don't think there was any transition from runner to coach whatsoever. And you've got to remember, I played running all through those Masters years. I never went out to be the best runner in the world in my Masters years whatsoever. It was incidental. I was probably the first or second ranked in the world when I was about 50. I could run 15:37 when I was 50 for 5k. and about 31:50 for 10k when I was 50. So, but I just ran because I loved it, and then I coached because I think I'm a people person. If I can help someone, you don't even just help them with the running. I mean, I get a Christmas card, I remember years ago, to my favourite life coach Christmas card. So I help people through their divorces, runners, and I help people. It doesn't matter if they've got worries or whatever. I try to help them in every possible way, and the running is part of that. They come to me for the running, but they get everything. They get everything.
Okay. Yeah, so you kind of started answering the next question, but maybe. So, what do you see as the most important role of a coach in that coach-runner relationship? And has that perception changed from your days as a runner to like when you looked at Lydiard? So, what was the most important thing for you as a runner to expect from a coach? And being a coach now, what do you think is the most important thing you need to give a runner?
Yeah, well, the coach is the most important part of the whole thing, the whole exercise, really. There's no such thing as a champion without a coach. The coach is the mastermind of everything that happens for the runner. He is everything. So the coach's job is to encourage, to inspire, to teach, to train. Um, Even the fact when they get beaten or they're broken down, to lift them up again. That's the job of the coach is to restore them. And nobody really becomes a champion or anything without the coach. The coach is the most important thing in these people's lives. And I've had fathers tell me that I'm number 2 in the house now. If you told so and so my son to jump off the harbour bridge, he would jump off. But that's the relationship the coach gets, with it. That he just builds the whole life that he's working with, and just as Lydia did, I do that too. But what I would use as the example of that. If you went to Mount Everest and you wanted to climb Mount Everest in the Himalayas, and you would go to Nepal, and then you'd check out how you would climb the mountain. What do you need? You'd perhaps go to the tourist bureau or something like that, and they'd say, okay, we can give you the best maps in the world of the mountain, all the weather conditions, everything, all the gear you'll need to buy, your tent you'll need to live in, what you'll need to cook on. They could give you 100 things that will encourage you or help you to get up there, to get that mountain and conquer the mountain. Or they might say to you, in the next room we have a man called Sherpa Tenzing, and he will take you to the top. Yeah, that's the coach. Sherpa Tenzing was the coach and the guide that took Hillary to the top of Everest. See? Mm-hmm. And that's what the coach has to be today and every day. He is the person that leads you and takes you to the top if you want to be at the top. So he is the most important person. I talked to a man a few years ago for about half an hour at the club, and the president came up to me afterwards, or he came up to the man afterwards, and I was still with the man I was talking to, and he said to the man, how have you got on with Barry? Yeah. And he said, have you learned anything, or has he helped you? Because the man was thinking of joining the club and that. And the man looked at our club president and said, I've learnt more in the last 30 minutes than I've learnt in the last 10 years. That's the difference the coach can make. So to Barry, the coach was really everything. Lydiard was everything to us. And Lydiard, he's accredited with 17 Olympic gold medals. Countries from Finland or Germany, and New Zealand and America. America's great marathon runner. I've talked to him. He won a gold and a silver for America. And I said, what training did you do? He said, Lydiard's. Gold and a silver in Olympic marathons in wherever it was, Moscow and Los Angeles and stuff. And so the coach is everything. So anyone that wants to run or run well, they find the best coach they can get. But I think the Everest story sums up. Yeah. You could read books till the cows come home. You could do your own thing. You could follow the Ethiopian training, the Kenyan training, the American training. Nothing compares to having the coach. And it doesn't matter if it's the Israeli soccer team or the All Blacks. If they have the coach, they could win.
Okay. And in your philosophy, continuing the Lydiard philosophy, what would you define as the core principles of successful training for distance running? What are the pillars that you build everything on?
Well, that you don't expect perhaps success for 3 years. You look at it logically and yeah, and just work at whatever the ambition or whatever the goal is. You don't give up with things that get in the way or stop you, and you find ways through them, around them, and that you do what you can do, and yeah, and without rushing, and to understand and learn the principles that speed that kills, distance never kills. You could go out and run 100k, it won't kill you. But if you train too hard or too fast, it could be just 600-800s on the track or something, or you start racing your training sort of thing when you're not ready and things like that. That will kill you. But so it's a matter of learning the principles and following them, knowing that it takes probably 3 years, and for some it often takes 10. There are runners at 40 who took up running at 30. They're far better at 40 than they ever were at 30. Runners start at 40, are better at 50. It takes 10 years because running is a thing that just you build. I mean, I think some field events are like that too. It takes about 10 years perhaps to make a great discus thrower, a great shot putter, things like that. They get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's the same with the runner. They just never lose sight of the goal, and they just keep working at it. And as Winston Churchill once said in World War II, we never give up. And that's a bit of famous quote of the great Winston Churchill. All the chips were down, we never give up. And that's the heart of the runner. And but it just depends what the goal is, and and I think being sensible. I'm not sure there's any one thing for that.
Okay. And I think I also read in a previous interview you said that you coach 99% leader than 1% you. And so what are your thoughts on, because there are so many things today as a runner. If you go online, you would read about what to eat and compression socks and the GPS and all of that. So how do you look at all of those developments, and do you think they're just, like you said previously, just trying to reinvent the wheel when they don't have to? Or, because you said Lydiard tried everything, right? So he experimented everything on his own, but some of these things weren't available back then. So what do you think about those? Do you even look into them, or do you just say, no, this is the Lydiard method and we're gonna stick to that?
Yeah, I look at them all. I've always been open to looking at everything. About 90% I reject and don't accept, because they don't make sense. People say, should I go to the gym? Should I do these core exercises? Do I need to do all these sprint drills? Or there's so many things. There's people with PhDs and master's degrees in physical education and goodness knows what. They've got all the theory in the book. And we had nothing. We did. Now, you've got to look at what we accomplished and what they can't run half as fast. They can't do half the stuff we did. So that's minimal, and that's everything really. So I'm still the Lydiard old-fashioned way of training. Whether they go to the gym or not, I couldn't care less. Whether they touch their toes, it doesn't matter to me. I couldn't touch my toes when I was a runner because my hamstrings were too tight or something. But I was never born a ballet dancer. But I found most of the things. The secret is in the training. Okay. Some may need something, with it, that the occasion rises, but it's still just the training. If they do, and one of my runners last year, he won the New Zealand Cross Country Championship. He got second New Zealand Marathon Championship. He got third New Zealand Road Championship and the New Zealand 10,000 track. That was just one runner sort of thing, and he doesn't spend half his time in the gym and all these other things. I think they sidetrack you. But there was someone with a master's degree in physical exercise. They have their runners doing 30 minutes of speed drills and things on the track. Lydia runners in that time would have run 3 times up a hill that's 1 kilometre long or something, with about 10 times the benefit. And so no, I'm not particularly modern, I suppose, and up with all the latest things. Lydia used to argue against all the experts of that in his day. That was it. And he'd shoot them all down in flames, really. He said, what results have you got from doing all that great stuff? Because they had all the tests from laboratories that people were doing hundreds of hours on treadmills or something. They're doing this and this and this and this and that. This happens for this happens and this happens and this happens. And they'd say, how many champions have you coached? So there'd be a cough and a splutter at the other end. So in the end of the day, I still think it's 99% training with the right attitude, the right coach, the right runner, and it will happen. It will happen.
Yeah.
And none of Arthur's boys went to the gym. We never had time. Home, families, work, everything else, and training. 100 miles a week and training. The training is 99% of the success comes with training. 1% can be the trims or the extras that you might do. If someone asked Lydia, should I go to the gym or shouldn't I? Lydia said, have you got time? The person might say yes. Okay, you're doing all the training? Yes. Okay, we'll go to the gym. If you've got time, you go. He wasn't against it at all, but you never did other stuff in place of training. So, yeah. But, if you're training twice a day and you're working as well, you don't have a lot of time for other things, do you? And particularly if you've got wife or children or something as well, you haven't got enough time as it is just to play with the kids or do something. Because how old's your baby?
6 months now.
6 months. Well, it'll come to a stage where, as I say, love is spelt with T-I-M-E. And they did a survey of children, and they asked them, how do you know your daddy loves you? About 90% of small children, aged from 5 to 7, says, "'Cause he plays with me." Eh? 'Cause he plays. That's time. So that's what you've got to juggle. That's the things that are important, really, of the playing and doing and getting that balance there. So, but no, I'm not strong on all the extras that go for it. If they do all my training, I don't mind if they're lifting weights, a few weights or things, or going to the gym or doing some calling. That's fine. That's okay. As long as they do the training first.
Okay. Another story that I wanted to ask you about was that Lydiard, when he first approached you at 17, he asked you, are you willing to run 100 miles a week? And if not, don't waste my time. And you said yes, although you've never ran more than 50 up to that point. So
that's true.
What kind of mental characteristics do you look for, or do you think are important for? Because this is obviously a mental ability to be able to take up on a challenge and live to. Is that the same kind of things you look for in a runner today as a coach?
Yes, I do. I look, they'll sit down with me at the table there, and some of them, it takes me perhaps an hour to convince them that they may possibly be able to do the training. The thing, see. But the runners who I have coached, who have sat down at the table with Barry, one of my questions to them is, what do you want from me as a coach? now the people who have done great things, Olympic Games and New Zealand records. I mean, one of my runners still holds the New Zealand resident record for 3,000 metres, 7:45. Don't know how it compares with the Israeli record or anything, but all the champions that really became champions virtually only had one line for me, the coach. They said, just tell me what to do. I didn't have to spend an hour telling them, trying to say, look, I think you could run 50k on any day. I think you could do 100 miles in a week. Or I don't have to. Yeah, they've got the sheer sole purpose. Just tell me what to do. They're prepared to do anything. Now, those are the people that really are so simple to train and so good to train. And that's why Lydia knew that if you weren't prepared to be like that sort of thing, don't waste my time. That was because, he had 4 children. He had a wife and 4 children and a full-time job. And he was still running 100 miles a week as well as that himself. So that was, but he was a bang, bang, bang man. He didn't muck around. He was, even his walk was fast. Boom, 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 boom. And but there was no muck around. And he certainly didn't want to waste time with runners who weren't going to be giving it, everything, because he considered time very valuable. You don't waste time. And but that's a true statement. He said to Barry, "Are you prepared to run 100 miles a week? If not, tell me now, because you're just wasting your time and mine." And so I must have said yes. I was at his kitchen table the next day, and I got my first schedule. I went home with the first schedule from Lydia, which was 100 miles a week on Plan A, conditioning for 8 weeks. Yes.
And that's another interesting concept is the train, don't strain philosophy as part of it.
Yes.
So for me as an amateur runner, I can see how that works. But if you're working with a top level athlete, how do you, because these guys are supposed to be pushing their limits as far as they can to get those achievements. So how do you maintain that train, don't strain, but still keep pushing the boundaries and reaching your very full potential?
With great difficulty, probably. Lydia knew that you had to be a relaxed runner. It didn't matter how fast you ran, you had to stay relaxed. And so as soon as you start straining at something or trying hard, all your shoulders bunch up, and you start getting tight. And apart from running into what we call the anaerobic threshold, and running into oxygen debt, and you get sore legs, and the next day you can hardly walk, etc., from training hard or training on hard surfaces. That wasn't at the Lydia psyche at all. There was none of it. You stayed. You never ran 100% in training. You didn't do it anyway. And so there was nothing. In 8 weeks of conditioning, there was nothing out of aerobic. And you would know that if you were studying that stuff, you got with oxygen or without oxygen. You never hit the wall without oxygen. It's only for 8 weeks or even the first 12 weeks, because the first 12 out of the 24 was really all building up and conditioning. So at the end of 12 weeks, many runners were doing personal best times, personal record, PRs, the American school, we call them PBs, just because the aerobic ability had gone from there to there. And you've got to remember, in that conditioning period of 8 weeks, that accomplishes 80% of everything you are training for to be 100% on race day 6 months down the track. You're 80% there just with the aerobic training, and that was all no strain in that at all. So you were almost okay for tomorrow. You never left it on the training track or road today that you needed days to recover or something from something just done in training. It was training within yourself always, never strain. And so that just lifted you day by day and week by week for that 8 weeks or whatever. Marathon runners did 10 weeks and the track runners did 8 weeks. No strain. But that was always a Lydiard. But he knew if you were relaxed, it didn't matter if your arms flopped along beside you, or paddle along. You couldn't care less what you'd done with the arms, but there was no another fighting or tightening or all that sort of stuff. And you're fast and relaxed. When you run fast, it was 100% ever. You know, it was 80, 70, 80, 90%, or even 95. So you're always running within yourself. And any time trial even you did, you never sprinted finished at the end with your hands on your knees, you know, for 2 minutes when you finished it. Even with the time trial, you could just keep jogging because you hadn't killed yourself, even in the time trial. So that always allowed that, you know, you never broke down the body. You were building it up week after week after week. That makes sense to you? Yeah. Okay. So that was the Lydiard philosophy. No strain. Train, don't strain was one of his number one key lines. Yeah, that he coached us all, and that just proved so successful, and so so good. I mean, you've got to remember, in our training group, there were 17 world records and 6 Olympic medals. I mean, that's unbelievable, isn't it? So what we know is he got everything. He did everything was right, wasn't it? But unfortunately, none of us can be a Lydiard quite. Yeah, we try to be, but we could never be. Lydiard was Lydiard.
And then looking at elite runners today, so we have marathons starting to go under 2 hours 3 minutes. So there was a huge jump. I mean, if you look at Peter Snell, he ran, I think in 1960 something, he ran 1:44 for the 800 on a grass track.
Yes.
He would still be competitive in an Olympic final today, while in the marathon we see a huge, like when you did the sub 220 in Rome, that was unusual.
215, the winner.
Yeah, so that wasn't done before. No. It was a big drop, and then in recent years we also see another big jump in the times. What do you attribute that to? I mean, why is it that 800, 1500 kind of stay the same while the marathon saw such a huge improvement in the world record and still does see it?
Well, a lot of track and marathon. These are completely different from the ones we did. For all the track racing, our grass in distance running, probably over 10k would be half a minute. The difference. My 28:50 for 10k, you know, could have easily been 28 to 28:20, you know, in those days, even. So the tracks are far better, the roads are far better, the courses are far better. They get. I went to the Boston Marathon 3 years ago, and I nearly cried when I saw it. You know, it was 10 times harder than Rome was, and that was it. It's point to point. You might get a tail breeze, and the last 8k, 5 miles is downhill. There's a lovely slide into the city. So there's so many advantages to them, but once you get under about 2 hours 5, you've got to be very suspicious also about drugs, because they could be 2 or 3 minutes quite easily if they use EPOs, and there's, as you know, there's a worldwide battle going on. You know, who's honest and who's dishonest, and in countries like Russia and Kenya, it's just been a way of life of taking stuff. So, but mainly the roads, the shoes. I mean, we had no running shoes. The shoes I ran the Olympic Marathon in Rome, Lydiard made them at his shoe factory, where he was the foreman, off a bowling shoe last. You know, bowls, they bowl the ball along a green, you know, to get to the kitty. Well, he got a bowling shoe last and made Barry a pair of running shoes. We had no running shoes even in those days. I used to run in tennis shoes, 100 miles a week in tennis shoes, or what's called sand shoes in those days. And so you got everything is better, and the further you go, of course, the greater the distance, the improvement is concerned. But I mean, even the sprinters on their tracks today, Usain Bolt and Jesse Owens, you know, it's probably about a second difference. You know? They could easily. Jesse Owens may have been just as good as Usain Bolt if he had been alive today. and did the same training or same tracks and that today.
Mm.
So, but the biggest thing is that, and also, they got conditions. You find most of those world records are run in 10 degrees, and they run incredible times on incredible courses on incredible surfaces, and I can remember running marathons in New Zealand, with tears in my eyes because the road was so rough. I was coming through and hurting my feet in my sand shoes, and I was in pain. And we were supposed to be qualifying for a national championship or something, but that was so many things are better and improved. Plus, the general speaking, the health of lots of people are better today in some ways. I think we were the last generation that had good food, and today you've probably got to take 90 vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fatty acids to be equal to what we had when we were 16 or 17 or 20 years of age. Our fathers grew vegetables. We ate fresh stuff. Even the fruit shop stuff was not even 24 hours old when you could buy it in a fruit shop. Today it could be 3 months old sitting in the supermarket. So we had many advantages in natural health wise. But for the time differences, there's half a dozen factors that contribute to that. And these courses in Amsterdam and Berlin and London, the courses are all made for times. And it's a whole different ball game. We don't know. We sort of ran up to the level that we just had to at the time. And but I probably never fulfilled my marathon potential. I probably never didn't even though but I only ran 2 marathons overseas, so that was a funny thing, and luckily I succeeded in both of them. But times and courses and everything is better. But as you said, in 2 laps, with Snell, but it also just showed the linear training at 1:44 on grass.
Yeah.
Would be 1:42 today, when the world record is about 1:41. It's still incredible, and it still stands as the national record of New Zealand. And even Nick Willis, and these great athletes, they still can't do 1:44 in New Zealand. Like Snell did on a grass track. It is an amazing thing, but I think there's just so many factors in the distance racing and the marathon running of the world that. But I think generally speaking, you're talking 2:4, 2:5 is perhaps the max capable. I'm very, very suspicious of anything that's under.
Really, all of them.
I think the world. In fact, I had a top coach from another country tell me 10 years ago. He said, "Barry, I don't believe there is a clean record on the books today." And that was 10 years ago. But we knew, in the 1960s, there were European or Russian women. They had more hair than you did. I think it was called steroids in those days, male hormones and steroids. But these women would come out and get a medal in a shot put or something like discus. They were built like men. You look at the New Zealand woman, she looked more like a model who was throwing a shot put for New Zealand. She was a normal woman. But these other ones, they were on drugs and stuff in 1960, and I said as a cyclist. So unfortunately, we live in a world that cheats today. And that's very sad. But such is the fame and the fortunes that go with it. $100,000 just to win one big marathon these days. So, and when people have got nothing, you can't blame a Kenyan who's brought up in poverty or something. And some of them mightn't even know what they're taking or doing. Really, it might be the coach. There was you can get a coach that we had that situation in New Zealand 20 years ago that top swimmer banned for taking drugs. The coach had given him muesli, health muesli with vitamins in it, but they still banned him. still banned, a 3-year ban or something. He retired. He just gave up then. He wasn't going to sit there for 3 years or whatever. So, but that's a sad aspect of sport today. And it's probably ripe in just about every sport that's going. And as we know, cycling is one of the worst. Lance Armstrong was the greatest drug cheat in history. And but the money is just, we never had that, did we? No, I don't. I've never seen a drug in my life, actually. No. And I gave up smoking at 15. And I virtually gave up alcohol when I was about 22. Yeah, so and I've certainly never seen any so-called drug, and I think we proved what you can do without them. Most New Zealanders are not running the times we ran 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's very sad. Very sad. We used to have, on a grass track, say an Auckland Championship, perhaps 1962 or 3 or something, 5 runners under 30 minutes. I mean, the National Championship, 1 runner. It's sad, isn't it?
So why do you think that is? Like, with all of these improvements in shoes and tracks, because in Israel we have the same. Like, if you look at absolute numbers in the marathon, how many runners went under 3 hours, we have less people. Although there are so many more runners and they're running with better equipment and supposedly better nutrition and everything, but we have less runners that go under that sub 3 hours, and it's the same for all levels. So.
Well, if you ask Lydia that question, you know what the answer would be? The coach. The coach. You see, you never blame the runner. Only coaches make champions. That's the difference. So if you have the coach, last year I had 2 runners under 2:30, in New Zealand, and they're running 2:26 and 2:27 they ran last year. And they're just local boys, and and then my top runner, who has so many abnormal things in his life, who can't, he screws out a pair of running shoes in 3 weeks, and 1 year he bought 15 pairs of running shoes, $200 each or something. Unfortunately, that brings injuries, because his foot hits the ground and he goes and screws out the whole midsole of a running shoe, and sometimes 2 weeks, and that gives him. But he won Auckland Marathon by 6 or 7 minutes in 2:18. He won the Invercargill Marathon in 2:17. He won the Christchurch Marathon in 2:16, and yet he's having just about to give up, really, because unfortunately he's got a style that destroys himself and the shoes at the same time. No, it's always the coach. That's it. The standard. You get the coach. It doesn't matter if it's the Auckland rugby team or runners. It's the coach. Like my runners last year in the M20 for New Zealand cross country. Then my man won the New Zealand senior title, and I had 2 masters running that day. They both won gold medals at the New Zealand cross country champs, one the M55 and one W60. They both won golds in the masters championship. So that's it's not. I just got the Lydiard way of coaching. The Lydiard way that brings us success. I put Lydiard there. Big letters, Barry, little letters underneath. I'm the guide, I'm the helper to their Everest.
So what, there are just not as many good coaches as there used to be? Because it just doesn't, like, if it's that successful and the results show that it is, what, are everyone just idiots? Why are they not following it and getting to those same achievements then?
Well, when I talked to Athletic New Zealand some years ago, they told me they'd moved on from Lydiard training. So many coaches would say, what have they moved on to? what we now have got is great pole vaulters, and we've got great shot putters. We're good all round, but not in distance running, because they've moved away from Lydiard training. It's as simple as that. They've moved away from Lydiard training. Yeah. And I watched a coach 2 weeks ago. He had 20 people on the track running with a stopwatch, and not one of them was a good runner. But Barry's brother, he's flogging them. He was flogging them. They'd do a 600 metres fast, and then 2-minute break, jogging, 2 minutes, whistle would go, bang, 800 metres fast, the whistle would go. That's not recovery. Half of those people were lucky if they went the whole session, because they weren't Lydiard trained. They probably hadn't done 8 weeks conditioning or anything like that. They were all ages and stages, and males and females on the track. He was the club coach, and they'd all turn out on the Saturday morning at 8 o'clock for one of his training sessions. That's the American way of too much speed. I'd never timed a recovery in my life. The American way is that, well, you only take 30 seconds, you only take 60 seconds. That lifts your oxygen at uptake level. And but but they haven't got a foundation. They haven't got a base there. We had a great world champion here about 12 years ago in New Zealand, world record holder, Olympic champion, from another country, somewhere overseas, El Garouge or someone, his name was something, one of the greats of history. Anyway, and he put up on the board all this great training he done. He done 2400s in 59, or you do 2200s, in 23 seconds. You do 6 800s or whatever, and 158 and everything, and all of this terrific stuff. And as if this was what made me a champion. But one of the coaches put his hand up and said, "Mr. Garouge," he said, "now what did you do for the 5 years before you did all that?" And this great athlete looked at him and said, just 100 miles a week. See, but these other runners, I was in Wellington watching this track session, and I was cringing inside at the poor runner. They're huffing and puffing, and the whistle had gone to start for the next repetition, fast, with this little short recovery, Well, some might take 3, some might take 4 minutes, some of those people who are doing the training, to really recover. And I know one of my runners jumped in with them a couple of months ago, and she had to stop 2/3 the way through the session because she was absolutely wrecked, because she wasn't fit enough to do it. But that's not our way whatsoever, not our way. So but they've gone away from Lydiard training and distance running. And Snell ran 2:41 marathon, training for the 800 and 1500. Does that tell you something? Halberg ran 2:28 marathon. Davies ran about a 2:29 marathon. It was just training. They weren't even straining to do that. It was hard work that day, that would have been for them. In fact, I was in the radio car when Snell did that 2:41. I was sick I got the flu that week, and I was supposed to run and I couldn't. So the radio commentator rang me up and said, "Would you come and travel with me, and you can help me commentate on the marathon as it goes for the radio report?" And with 3 miles to go, Snell's walking down the road. Then he jogged for a couple hundred metres, then he had another walk, and then he jogged again. But he was still conditioned well enough to still finish in 2:41. At the 20-mile mark, he was on for 2:30. He lost 11 minutes in the last half an hour running. But it's all in the training, all in the coaching. That's the secret. If you want good runners anywhere, just like within 12 months of me going to Korea and Seoul for a month, I started university sport. And I just worked with a different team every day, a different coach and his runners every day. And I'd go to the Lydiard the Lydian formulas, and within 12 months they'd broken the 5,000, the 10,000 and the marathon records of Korea doing Lydian training. But today, in countries, many coaches are not doing that. And in New Zealand, the Athletics New Zealand has told me they've moved on. Are you still going?
I have two more. I think it's still good.
Still
we'll find
on
out soon enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just two last questions, I think.
We're getting to the last lap, are we?
Oh, it's filling the stables, as we call it. So you coach both competitive champions and recreational athletes.
About 50-50.
Yeah. Do you enjoy
50%.
one more than the other, or do you coach them differently, or?
Oh, I just take everyone as they are, when they are, how they are, what they can do, what they can't do. Whether they start off with 4 days a week or 5 days a week, or no, it makes no difference to me. 50% of all I coach are social runners, and 50% are go-getters. I had about 4 or 5 running the 1500 at club on Wednesday night. I think 3 of them got personal bests in the club the other night. So they're go-getters. They're the go-getter ones. But no, it makes no difference to Barry whether they're just social runners really trying to break 4 hours or 5 hours for a marathon, or 3 hours for a marathon, or they just want to run around the bays, about 8K. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. Being a professional coach, everyone is a complete individual to me, and they all start in different. With Lydian it was different. He didn't coach all the social runners. He just trained people who wanted to do the stuff, and we all did it. And he probably had about 20 at the time, but 6 of us rose to the top. So we had about 20 all the time, probably. But I don't differentiate. I just treat them all as human beings and helping them with their quality of life. I call it quality of life running. It adds that to the system, to them, and wherever they are. And I just smile more when I've got a real athletic champion or someone with some potential to deal with, because some of them have got very little potential, and we can still make them improve a lot, heaps and heaps and heaps. And that puts a smile on my face, because it's lovely to have that Peter Snell potential with a runner, if he can run. And so it's wonderful to see him fulfill his potential, as a runner, and help him to do that, and that he can look back. And so that last 10 years have been a great year, great time. But so I've set up a professional school of running, international, the Barry Magee School of Running, that's done the Lydian way, as everybody knows, and they'll pay something for that just to keep it going. But if you got paid what I got paid, you'd be broke. You wouldn't be able to support a wife or a child or anything, because it's peanuts in the big. I think I do probably about 30 hours a week on the computer, because I coach in 9 countries in the world, plus all over New Zealand, and a lot of it is by computer. I never see lots of them. 90% of our runners I never see, but I still coach them that way. But we do have this fee. But last year, I think the gross income, was about 18,000. Expenses were about 7. So I don't know how many workers would work for 11,000 a year. So you can see it's a hobby job, but we've insisted that it pays its way. It pays its way. A US coach like me would be $2,000 a year, or even if you went to a triathlon coach, he'd be $100 a month minimum, $100 a month. Yeah. And Barry's $9 a week. The likes of Simon would pay $9 a week for everything. That's nutrition, there's lifestyles, that's coaching, that's training, that's everything you can think of. With it, I want to know what their blood pressure is. I want to know what their resting heart rate is. So I've looked at everything. I want to know if they're taking B complex or B12, or know if they're taking a multivitamin tablet, if they're taking calcium, magnesium, calcium. I want to know what their iron ferritin is, their iron hemoglobin is. So, I really try and do the whole deal for that. I've spent just years and years and years studying what they should have. Are they having enough protein for breakfast, for instance? Because, breakfast is the main meal of the day. And a runner, if he's training twice a day, he can't get by on 5 Weet-Bix. That's carbohydrates. You've got to have protein in that with it as well. So, I try to help in every possible way that'll help body, mind and spirit to run faster or feel good, work or play or running or training.
That was actually the last question as well, because that was about that. Because I think I read somewhere that you said that you call it the ministry of helping people, and I saw what you charge, and it's really like laughable compared to what other coaches take. I hope you're not offended by it, but like you said, people take that much for a month in Auckland for the kind of services you have. So of course it's intriguing. It's also commendable. So why do you do it? I mean, what keeps you going?
Well, I do. I feel I have been. God has really given me a gift of helping and coaching other people, and that's. I think that's the thing. It is like a ministry to me, just like as someone, might be in the St John's ambulance, or someone who's a nurse or a school teacher. They sort of feel called to it, and but no, it warms my heart to help people that way. And that's the main thing, I think. And secondary is some monetary return. Or else if we go broke, I couldn't do it. Particularly seeing my wife's retired now and can't support anything in that area. But no, it's the satisfaction that I get from doing it, and everything that Lydia has taught me. It's a privilege to pass it on, and it's a privilege to see someone fulfill their potential. One of these boys last Wednesday night, aged about 17, had a personal best of 4:18 for the 1500. He ran 4:9. When you thought he'd won the Olympic title. I got this text the next morning. Barry, 4:09 last night. He said, "Wacko!" He's so happy. So that's the answer really. Just helping people do something to be successful and good. And I've never wanted what I charge to put people off. Unfortunately, sometimes you only get the people with some money that will come to you, and not the people who need it perhaps. Who perhaps can't even afford the full 50 a year, sort of thing. So it's a tricky situation, but for Barry, it's the fear of the heart. Hopefully, your wife is the same to you. It's the fear of the heart that you love her completely, and you're willing to live or die for her, and so it's a bit the same for Barry. I do what I love to do. I love doing it. I love helping them, and so be it.
Ministry of helping people, indeed. Well, Barry Magee, one of the greatest and most inspiring runners of all time. Thank you so much for this interview. It's been really fascinating and inspiring, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Jerusalem very soon.
Well, that'll be amazing, won't it? Everything. But my final words is, I think I always have been a very, very ordinary person who has somehow done the extraordinary. And I think a lot of people would fall into that category of ordinary. I mean, the Usain Bolts and the Nick Willises of this world are born. They're not made champions, they're born champions. 99% of runners that are made. And I think I was one of them. I don't think I was gifted or born. I think I was very ordinary. In fact, my stories are, the boy who was scared, afraid, skinny, weak, bullied at school, everything. And yeah, I was the weakest of the weak. And yet, so that's the very, very ordinary, and yet the life that I've had is absolutely extraordinary. And so the results have been that way, that people just look and they can't believe it, what we did. It doesn't comprehend, because it's out of their world of reasoning and thinking that you could, do the extraordinary. But I think I'm an example of that, which should be an example, I hope, to everybody who wants or strives to do something, to give it their best shot, and let's see what will happen.
Thank you very
much.